Okay, so it's me. I'm just going to give a brief little explanation of the pathology report that Dr. Joe called with on the Friday before Labor Day. So he called Friday. Mom and I had been out and about trying to get the proper undergarments for me, and in the process of that, we're headed to Dillard's to return something that did not work. So we were pulling into the mall, and Dr. Joe called, and so I was like, I knew that he was calling with the path report. So we pulled into a parking spot. It was 4 o'clock our time, 3 o'clock his time on that Friday afternoon. And so we parked the car, and he said that it had, well, first of all, the path report really took longer than we expected for it to get back. Okay, like we kind of thought he would have it before we left town, and he didn't. So he said, but when we left, we literally had stopped back by his office before we left town because I had a thank you gift for him and his nurse. And so he was like, girl, don't worry about it. Your lymph was clear. Everything looks good. Like, really, it's going to be great. No worries. Just go on. We'll get it when we get it, and I'll give you a holler when it comes in. So I really had expected to hear from him a little sooner than we did. But anyway, so we had flown in on Monday. We'd seen him that Monday morning. We heard from him Friday afternoon. So he says, first, the good news. He said, there's some good news, still not in your lymph. That's confirmed. So that's good, right? He said, and then really the good news, even with your right breast, which we had taken, so just to refresh memories, and maybe I didn't go into this much detail with people, is that initially the cancer that was invasive was in my left breast. And so all along, the definite medical need to do a mastectomy was only for my left breast. Dave and I had moved to a decision with my surgeon here, even before anything was found in my right breast, that we felt like it was a good idea to do a double just because there was a 30% chance something would show up in my right breast at some point anyway. Then they were doing the MRI and saw something in my right breast when they were MRIing my left breast and wanted to check it out. So they went in and biopsied that and found that it was lobular, but it was something we could, didn't need to worry about. It might turn to something we could probably just do a lumpectomy. But for us, it was just confirmation, right, that we were just going to go ahead and do a double. But medically, it wasn't necessarily indicated, right? Particularly since we did genetic testing and all my genetic testing came back clean. As far as they knew, there was a mutation that they don't know about. Like, it could be a margin of error, or it could be that I've got some mutation that they don't know about yet. Although we do know that my my dad's mother and her sister, my dad's mother died of ovarian cancer, and my dad's aunt died of breast cancer. And then on my mom's side, my maternal grandfather's mother died of breast cancer, but she had breast cancer in the 40s and lived another 20 years, even so. So anyway, so it was on both sides of my family, but no BRCA genes. So everybody was kind of, whatever you need to do, but you don't have to take them both. Okay, so just to catch up on that. So he said, here's the thing, Kathy, what we found in the right breast, though, was really surprising. He said, we found lots of stuff going on in there. And he said it wasn't live, but it would have gone live. He said, so the good news is that you made the right decision to take them both. Good call, right? So we consider that a positive. So then he went back to the left breast and said, we found a whole lot more there as well. He said it's all really, really small. So all of what I had was small, okay, like less than a centimeter, although we found things in a line on my left breast. So the span of what was going on in my left breast was about 4 centimeters. Nothing was a tumor. It was just kind of in a line. And then the invasive was like millimeters. But it was a more aggressive, it had not been there in a year and had then, busted on out in that time. And I knew from the research I had done about the way the cells were behaving that it was a more aggressive. It had necrosis in the center of the cells. And I had done enough research to kind of know. So he said there was a lot more DCIS in the left breast. What I don't remember from the conversation is whether, like the nature of that, right? Like, was any other of it invasive? Like, what was the nature of it, right? I don't know. Okay, because again, I don't have the path report. What he did say were two things. One, what we found originally, you can have estrogen positive breast cancer, in which they usually treat you with hormones and they throw you into early menopause. Mine early, like we knew, was estrogen positive and progesterone positive. Very, very high, like both like 98%. Okay. And so like premenopausal. Okay. So that's estrogen and progesterone positive. And then it was something called HER2. And what they're looking for is whether it's HER2 positive or whether it's HER2 negative. So some of you've probably heard about like triple negative cancer, and that's like the Mac Daddy really hard to treat kind of stuff. And I didn't have that, like when they tested it. And a lot of times that's the genetic stuff, right? That's BRCA. That's the stuff that you hear about when people get genetic testing. Not always, but a lot of the time. I had been HER2 negative +1, okay, which I know you're all like, this is Greek to me. And then I was ER/PR positive, like 98% on both of those kind of thing. Now, what research I had done, and I'd read in a paper somewhere that HER2 positive, like HER2 negative, so it's on the negative side, +1, with that ER/PR positive thing going on, could act kind of like a wild card. Like it didn't always behave. Anyway, I don't know which article I read. I don't know, whatever. But I had seen that somewhere. So one of my questions for the medical oncologist will be around that. But now the samples they had taken in my left breast was showing HER2 positive. Okay, so now we're on the other scale. So if we're talking about like a sliding scale, you've got HER2, you've got kind of a 0 right here on the scale. I should have drawn you a picture. So then you've got HER2 negative, right? Or HER2 positive. So you've got triple negative, triple positive. So now what's showing up is triple positive. And the triple positive is the extreme on the other side. But what's more problematic about that is that's more the metastatic kind. And apparently it's easier to treat, which is good. And you usually treat it with monoclonal antibodies, and you can treat it also with chemo. But they usually use what they call adjuvant. I don't know how you pronounce the word, but therapies. So he said that's how my path was coming back on the left side, a lot of it. The other thing he said was that he had taken some tissue out. My mom and I argue about whether she said she heard a triangular piece of tissue. I heard tumor, but whatever. At 6 o'clock, so if you're looking at the breast as like a clock, at 6 o'clock, and I understood him to mean kind of down by the rib cage. And the reason that's significant is when you've had a mastectomy and you've got, HER +3, right, where it could met, if it's going to met, it's going to met first likely in like, any of the chest wall, right? So all the doctors take all of the breast tissue when they go in for a mastectomy. So you're not necessarily talking about margins, because that's not a thing. Margins are more an issue with lumpectomies, but there is chest wall and, all those things. And they, they're not looking to just like gouge you completely, right? So anyway, the problem is when he was reading the path report, he said he didn't see an accounting for that piece of tissue anywhere in the report. He said he's been all over it. And again, it's a 21-page report. So he said either it got mislabeled in the OR or it got mishandled in the lab. So because of that, he, for himself, peace of mind, all that jazz, and because he needs to know like what that path is, he's going to go back in. He had already talked to my plastic surgeon. They're going to go in together at my revision surgery. and it's an easy spot. It's where they're going to be fixing the breast anyway, for a scar revision anyway. So they're going to go in together, and he's going to get tissue, even if it means he has to like take, everything down to the skin, whatever, as they're repairing. And he's going to get pathology in that area. If he has to take chest wall, like whatever, he's going to get pathology there. So that's the other news report. My question was, well, why was all this stuff missed? Like, why, he said, well, first of all, it's tiny. He said, second of all, he said, this pathologist is, and he joked, he said, is pretty pathological about the way he goes about this stuff. He said he is one of the best in the country, that people send stuff to him from all over the country to look at because he doesn't miss anything. So that's also a praise, right? That's awesome. So he was like, you need to get to a medical oncologist, quickly, which I was going to follow up with one anyway, but this just hastened that. So we don't know, right? It could be that medical oncologist is, looks at the report and is like, hey, we're really okay, or these are our options, right? I think it's best to be safe than sorry. All those things, right? So we just don't know. But what is good is that we know some people who are able to help us get to the medical oncologist that I knew I wanted to see all along. He's who we talked about in my very first meeting with the surgical oncologist here in town. And he's a believer, and some friends of ours know him personally, but then we also, because of our professional network at the Cancer Institute, we're able to, in fact, he offered me, like the day the person reached out to him, I could have seen him the next day, but we were out of town at the Cove. So he's going to see me tomorrow morning early, before he leaves town on vacation. So that is just a blessing from God for sure. So I thought this was going to be brief, but that's about as brief as I can keep it without giving you so much detail. And some of you who've had breast cancer kind of know exactly what I was talking about, and that might help you to maybe even reach out to me and be like, yeah, this is what this means, Kathy, or whatever. But again, I also feel like I need to clarify the be fearless. Like, I also think, Andrew was talking about courage in Brunson, and courage is also about doing it afraid sometimes, right? But being willing to, and mostly do not fear, because we know that the Lord has us, right? And so I will say that when I was looking up some of the treatments for this, realizing that, it could be a year of treatment. I maybe naively was like, this is, we thought we were done, right? Except for a revision surgery. And so I got a little emotional about that. On the other hand, I just know that God's got this, and I'm trying to settle back into that. But I also know that I'm going to need all the support and the prayers that you guys have been given. And I'm certainly looking forward to the opportunity of, really now embracing the fact that I am, in fact, a breast cancer patient. Something I was kind of like, I don't really consider myself a breast cancer patient because this is just going to be, done. I'm a reconstruction patient, right? A mastectomy and reconstruction patient. So, anyway, I am honored to be able to come alongside and now count myself among the amazing women and be able to just, minister in whatever way I can. So, alrighty, we'll let you know. Bye.